WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Mr. Bob Pollock in the studio with us this morning, and you can see him on Facebook. You just saw Jake passing by in the background, too. A little different camera angle here today than we're used to.
Yeah.
Our conversation,
see if we can figure it out.
Brought to you by Marcus and Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And, Bob, gardening season is here, and little by little, the ground's going to dry out enough for us to maybe get in the garden someday, but not quite yet for a lot of folks.
We hope. We're like 8.6 inches above normal.
8.6?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
A lot of western Pennsylvania is in the above 75% above normal category for precipitation for the year at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that being the case, there are some things that normally would be done by now that folks are still waiting to do.
Very true.
And getting out there into the garden is one of them. Now, do we need to treat our soil any differently as we're preparing it when it's been wet for so long?
Well, one of the things we haven't mentioned lately was, soil testing, which hopefully we did that last fall. But if we didn't, and if we're starting a new plot, or we're just not sure what nutrients to add or where our pH is, we still have time to do a soil test. And, of course, we have soil test kits available at our office that you can use, pull your sample, you send it in the mail, and you send your money with it. Used to be you paid up front, and now you send your check with it in the mail. And, within a week, you'll have those test results back. And, of course, we're looking at where is our soil pH? Is it acidic or alkaline? Most of our plants prefer to be in that slightly acidic range, so anywhere from 6.2 or 6.4 up to about 7. 7 is what they call neutral on this 0 to 14 scale. And not very many things do we want to have above neutral pH. We prefer to have that just slightly acidic. So 6.5 to 7 is where most crops want to be, with the exception of blueberries, of course, which we want to have down at like 4.5.
Yeah.
So we need them in an acid soil. They don't function well when the pH is too alkaline, and you'll just struggle with those plants, and eventually they'll probably die if that pH range isn't right for them. That's the one that's the most highly sensitive to that. The other big reason we want to be in that pH range, of course, is nutrient availability. All right, between 6 and 7 is where the majority of nutrients, both macro and micro, so nutrients we need in higher quantities like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and then our micronutrients such as manganese, copper, zinc, and the list goes on. We need those in smaller quantities, but most plants still need to use some of that. So by hitting that 6 to 7 pH range, we make those available to the majority of plants. And when we get outside of those too acid or too alkaline, then those things get tied up and they become unavailable, and that's not good.
Well, for those who don't know, we have the idea that throwing lime on is going to reduce the acidity. But what are the best methods for increasing the acidity?
Yes, so if our pH is too acid and we need to make it more alkaline, then we would add lime, which has calcium in it, a nutrient, plus it neutralizes acidity. If we need to go the other way, then we pretty much have to go with sulfur, is what we use to go the other direction. Neither one of those, interestingly enough, sulfur or lime, react very quickly. It's not like we throw that on today and by tomorrow we'll have our pH adjusted. We need to plan ahead for that. It takes months into a year to really, effectively change that pH. And it's probably easier to go put lime on and make it more alkaline than it is to put sulfur on and make it more acidic. It'll take more time for that reaction to occur.
Okay, well, that all being the case, you mentioned a new plot. So somebody has had grass growing in an area of their yard. Now they want to turn that into a garden. And it's been good grass for them, but it's time to make it into a garden. You want to grow your vegetables there. When they turn that soil over, are they going to find that generally to be acidic or alkaline? And will the fact that it hasn't been used for vegetable growing in the past, will that be affected by the fact that it's been used for grass?
It may be. The history, how often did you apply lime to the yard? Maybe never. Most of our soils tend to have a little bit of an acidic reaction just naturally. We don't have to drive we can drive an hour east and probably get into more limestone-based soils.
Mm-hmm.
And even west too. There are pockets of limestone rock, and those soils tend to be more calcitic or alkaline just by nature. But our soils here tend to be a little bit on the acid side to begin with. So if we haven't done anything, then we have a better chance that it'll be on the acid side to begin with, and might be just fine. We might just have to tweak it a little bit. But if you have a history of annually just throwing on some lime on the yard every fall or every spring, then it might be more alkaline than you think, and we don't need to apply lime for a while. But we don't know that unless we can test it, and there's various ways to do that. Of course, you can use the soil test kits from Penn State, which are going to give you the pH, calcium level, magnesium level, phosphorus and potassium levels, and a recommendation for, based on that analysis, here's how much you need to apply of any one of those to get it in the optimum range for growing the crop that you've selected. So it's not just a general test you're taking. Mm-hmm. It's tailored to the crop that you're trying to grow. So for vegetables, if you're just growing, you'll be growing a variety of vegetables in the garden. There's just one for general vegetables. So it's maybe not quite as precise because you're going to grow a variety of things, but we're trying to get the nutrients where they need to be for the majority of those crops. It'll be close. Or, if it's just going to plant one thing, then you can specify that particular crop.
But tomatoes are going to want something different than cucumbers want.
A little bit, but but for the most part, those results will get you in the range you need to be.
Yeah, get into the neighborhood.
Yep, and be fine.
Yeah. For people who are starting a new plot, and again, this is somebody who's turning over sod and making it into a garden. Is it more likely? We know it's more likely they're going to have rocks that they're going to have to deal with. But are they more likely to have that grass be a problem through the course of the growing season, simply because that's what it's been all along?
Yes, and it can be a problem. If we don't get it turned over, if we're able to plow and we can turn that whole furrow upside down, we have less issues with that than if we're just trying to maybe spade it or just go in there and rototill it.
Yeah.
We're more likely, especially with some of the, if you have any kind of Kentucky bluegrass in your yard, that spreads by rhizomes, and so just little bits of those rhizomes can make a new plant. So that makes it a little more challenging. Sometimes you can go in and just skim off. Typically grass is going to be in the top 4 inches of soil. Mm-hmm. You can go in there and just kind of lift that layer of sod off, which would help. Now, what we lose there is some of that organic matter from that growing plant that we may have really wanted to turn under. But you could skim that off, keep that for later, compost it, let that die down and rot down, and then you can add that back in. Or you could skim it off and spade and work the soil underneath, and then even pull some of that out and put that sod back down in the bottom, upside down, and then put the soil back on top too would be another way to do that. Somewhat labor intensive, but
Rewarding in the end.
But it might be, yes, it might be very rewarding in the end.
All right. So there you go. Little gardening discussion this morning with Bob Pollock from the Extension Service. Thanks.
You're welcome.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. We're 2 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Fox News comes your way then, and then Jake Slobodnik is in for Josh in the WCCS newsroom today. So he's on the way.